Welcome to Chewing the Fat. Felton Pruitt here with you. And our guest this week is Jake. And now that's where I'm going to stop and say, I don't know if I've been pronouncing your name right or wrong for the last 6 months. I've been saying Vadelin. Is that right?
Well,
No,
that's one way to do it. A lot of people say it that way, but it's Vodland.
Vodlin. Okay. So that's
Yeah,
the way to do it. So the new Jake Vodlin album is called This Is Jake Vodlin. And
yeah,
it's just you and a guitar. It's very simple and plain, and I love it.
yeah. It's very different from anything I've ever done, and very special. And I've been waiting a long time to put something that special and true to myself for quite a while now. I'll wait for the right time to do it, and we had some time, so I went in and sat there with an old RCA microphone, recorded through that straight onto tape, about 23 songs in 8 hours, and then we cut it down to 17 to fit on the record and put it out. And why I wanted to do that, just myself without the band, is that's really the type of music that I grew up with, and why it's called This Is Jake Vodland is it really is I am and what I do. If I'm at home sitting around and I decide to pick up a guitar and play, these are the songs that I'm playing by myself in my house. So it really is just a peek into this is Jake Vodland sitting on his couch playing his guitar and singing the songs that his family taught him, and that's what it is. And it's very special. It's dedicated to all four of my grandparents. And the physical record itself is quite a piece of work. It comes with an inner sleeve that has a dedication written on it, a picture of the homestead that was put together 96 years ago in 1930, I believe. And my great grandfather came across from Norway, built the house, and then on the other side of that inner sleeve, it shows a bunch of pictures of all my grandparents growing up and just a little bit of my family's history. So it's a very, very personal, special album that is extremely different from anything that we've ever put out so far.
It is and that was courageous for you to do because you have this successful formula going, and you've totally just stopped that for a minute and went back. And I love that part because this is a really true, honest. I don't know if you'd call it a folk record or true country record, but close.
Yeah, yeah, it's really there's a lot of those old Carter family songs and recorded the same way through one microphone, right on, not right onto a record, but onto tape instead. But same idea.
What did you use for a tape deck? Yeah, how did you record it onto? Did you record it onto a hard drive? Did you record it onto reel-to-reel tape?
Onto reel-to-reel tape, yeah, through one RCA microphone and through some sort of what they call a preamps from the 1950s, and then onto the tape machine. And this equipment that they had in the studio had been there since the 40s and stuff in their vault, so they brought that out to use for this record, and it was a really exciting thing for them to do that as well, I think. So, and how that came together was I had won, I think it was last year at the Canadian Country Music Awards. It was something like Alternative Country Album of the Year or whatever. That goes to show how important awards are to me. I don't really, I don't really, as long as I can make my living doing this, I'm happy. But we did win something there. And with that award came 3 days free at the National Music Center, Studio Bell in Calgary. And so I used 2 of those days to go in and record this whole album. And like I said, I recorded it all on the first day, 23 songs. And so there are still some songs I don't know what to do with. Maybe we can make an expanded edition someday. I don't know. But we could only fit 17 on the records. And so, because we print vinyl. So we do it that way. And that's how we think. So that's all that we had to pick the best to go on. And that's how that happened. And I've got 1 day left there at the studio whenever I want to use it. I'm hoping to maybe bring the boys in someday and do a little 2 song on each side of say a 45 or something, maybe a little rockabilly type thing instead to change things up again.
I have to say that with your upbringing as a cattle rancher, I guess, or whatever, when did you decide? How old were you when you said, I think I want to be a musician?
I was probably I think the idea started when I was 14, 15. I started learning banjo because I thought maybe it would make the other kids like me or think I was cool or whatever. And it did the opposite. They didn't like that. And so then I thought at that time, cattle farming and that, it seemed fitting to be able to play the banjo at the end of the day and have a banjo out at the farm, sit on the deck and play. And we always would get together and jam. And like I said, that's as far as I thought it went. Nobody had ever entertained the idea of making a living doing it on the road. It was just something you did at the end of the day with all your friends and neighbors. So, but then one day I probably was like I started entertaining the idea of maybe just like Earl Scruggs got picked up by Bill Monroe, young fella. I thought maybe if I got lucky, I'd get picked up by a group and I could play banjo and sing tenor, or whatever. And then so I started studying Earl Scruggs and all these people, and in doing that, at the beginning, when I would watch, Lester Flatt, he just stood there and sang. He wasn't important. He just played the guitar. But the more I studied that, the more I realized how important Lester and people like him in his position were for the operating of the live show, not just the music. The music's one thing, but if you want to have a show, a traveling road show, and a program that's put together, that's really important, and that is a skill that I admired, and it stressed me out that I didn't know how to do that. I wanted to know how to be able to have a tight knit program, and so I guess
Well,
I
it's a
realized why I did.
learning process for you, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, that's when I realized I didn't just want to be a banjo player. I wanted to I wanted to be Lester. I wanted to do what he was doing. So like I say, I got a nicer haircut and started learning the guitar because I didn't want to play banjo and do the lead because the banjo's, you got to focus on that instrument. So, and there's a lot of tuning involved on that instrument. So I don't want to be doing that while I'm up on. So I learned guitar, especially for the role, and then started up a group. And, we've been going ever since. So,
Yeah. Well, who was it? It was Ralph Stanley that they asked him, "Where did you get this desire to play music and to sing this bluegrass stuff?" And he just says, "Well, it's just got to be born in you." And I
yeah.
think it was born in you, Jake.
I think it was, yeah. Yeah, like I say, I was singing ever since I could make noise. They tell me my
Yeah.
first paying gig was when I was about 3 years old. At 3 or 4, I learned I could speak, so I was singing Johnny Cash up there at one of my dad's shows, and some lady come up after and gave me a $2 coin. So there I had my first paying gig.
Yeah. I bet you didn't save it though.
No, no. Well, somebody got it on film there.
Well, that's cool. That's cool.
That'd
Yeah.
that'd be something to put out someday if I could ever find that again. But
So when people go out and see a Jake Bodlin show, what can they expect to see?
well, I don't imagine they can expect to be bored, that's for sure. I am very passionate on making sure it's one thing to the next with no dead air, like I say, and very tight knit. So I don't think people have to be worried about filling in the gaps. We'll take care of that. It's in a nutshell, it's reminiscent of the old Grand Ole Opry show, really.
Yeah.
Like if you've ever watched those old Martha White sponsored Flat and Scruggs programs and stuff, it was influenced heavily by those and by Lester Flatt too. So we've got a lot of visuals. We've got a stand of old microphones that we go around and stuff. We're not stationary at our own mics. We move around. I like to call it like herding cattle around that microphone when someone has to come in for a solo and you get out of the way and then you have to push them
Sure.
out to get back in to sing again. So there's a lot to watch and never a dull moment for us on stage either because you've got to be alert and aware. And there's banter, there's jokes, there's a couple stunts, standing on the bass and all that kind of thing. And I like to get a little bit crazy and dance a little bit, put my
Give
hair
us a
down.
joke. Give us a joke.
Here now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, just when you're performing, give us a joke in between songs.
Yeah, well, yeah, no, I do that type of thing, and there's a couple that, well, when I introduce the group, I like to just those simple things like that someone would say on the farm or whatever, and then I keep that in mind and I put it on the show, like even just saying, fellow over here sings the tenor harmony. Sometimes I wish he'd sing 10 or 12 miles away. It's something like that. And I got influenced a lot by a lot of Lester's jokes. Like I like to talk about the guitar player that when he first started working with me, he asked that he understood I didn't allow any drinking on the show. So I said, yeah, no drinking of any alcohol on the program whatsoever. But if you would like to have yourself just one little drink of the night before you go to bed, suppose that'll be all right. And I'll never forget the first day he worked with me. He went to bed 37 times, is what I'll say
Right.
about him. So it's just things like that we keep on, and it's really a tight knit show, and I guess that's what people can expect to see.
You've had a great year. Last 2025 was pretty special for you. I was reading about you playing at the Edmonton Folk Festival, and you did Four Strong Winds by Ian Tyson. Talk
Yeah,
about that experience.
yeah, that was good. It was a good one. Alison Krauss and Robert Plant were there, and they had played just before us. So I was just looking at these two people standing there backstage, and, and I guess that's a pretty big deal to see Alison Krauss there. Obviously, they didn't notice me. He kind of winked at me, and she gave me a smirk there when so it was nice
Oh,
I like to make a joke and say that Robert Plant and Alison Krauss opened for me because
of
they
course.
played
Yeah.
they played before, and then we went on to do the finale for the thing. Me
Yeah.
and a girl named Nolene Hoffman from the province of Alberta, and her and I,
Yeah, I'm
we
playing Nolene too. We play her.
okay, yeah, yeah, no, her and I, well, I like to think we're good friends anyway. We've worked together a few times and get along quite well, and she's doing wonderfully and has a lot of success, and very happy for her. So yeah, we got paired up to do that together. And Four Strong Winds isn't a song that I would have ever thought to sing or play, but that's what they wanted to do, and of course I wasn't going to turn down that. So her and I, we just sat down that day and picked out some harmony and figured it out. Hoped for the best that I'd remember the lyrics, and
Yeah.
then yeah, we went on there in front of I don't know how many thousands of people with their they would hand out all these candles and stuff. So all this hole up this hill, all these people with these candles. It was a really fascinating sight. And yeah, we sang the Four Strong Winds, and everybody out there was singing along to it. So it was a nice experience. And I guess it would have been shortly after that we found out we were nominated for a Juno Award. And I thought that's as far as that would go. And then sure enough, we ended up winning that for our and that's about the biggest I try not to worry too much about the awards. Like I say, I want to just make my living doing this and all that. But that really is, I'm proud of that one. That's probably the biggest accomplishment so far, if you think of it that way. Of course, my biggest accomplishment is just being able to make my living doing this so far. I'm very happy about that. But that was a good year getting that Juno too. That's about one of the biggest awards you could probably get in Canada for music and stuff. So,
Well, this year you're going to play the Americana Music Awards in Nashville later on this year, and I
mhm.
think you're gonna turn on a lot of people. There's a lot of radio. Like I used to go to those conventions all the time, and there's going to be a lot of radio people there that don't know you, but you're
Yeah.
going to turn heads. You're going to turn people on to your music, and I'm looking forward to seeing your career even mushroom more and grow more.
Yeah, well, I sure hope so. We've been, carefully planning strategy and stuff, and so we haven't been in the States too much yet, but we're looking forward to starting to hopefully turn some heads and get open a new market there to play too, coming up in the next few years, and this is one of the first. We've taken some steps already, but like I say, we have a very careful strategy to carry out, and so this is one of those things to go to Americana Fest and somewhat showcase, and there's a huge market there in the States that we're kind of saving to help us out.
I think you're going to do great in the States. You'd probably do great down in Australia too.
Yeah, we've talked about that too. I'm just so stressed out about that long flight.
Yeah, well, take a couple. Just go to Africa first or someplace. Do some stops and play there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that'd be good. We enjoy playing in Europe a lot. We play in Europe quite a bit, and they've been wonderful. They're really wild about this type of music. I guess they didn't really have it the same way we did back then. So it's kind of it's my theory anyway. It seems to be a new hit for them over there. This bluegrass and rockabilly music is
Yeah.
sort of a new thing. It's almost like it's the in thing for the kids. So we have a young audience over there, and they're very lively. So we enjoy that.
Who would you say were your rockabilly influences?
Well, that's a funny one because I had no intention of adding any rockabilly notes to it, but the guy I ended up working with plays electric guitar, so I thought, well, it'd just be bluegrass music with electric, and then we ended up working with a bass player from England, and he's a really good rockabilly bass player with a lot of slapping and stuff. So it's really a mash of bluegrass, country, and rockabilly, which sort of makes it our own unique sound, which was never my intention, but it is worked out. It's working out well. People enjoy it. So as far as influence for that, I'm not quite sure. I could tell you who it's not. People always think, well, Elvis
Yeah.
and that, but it's not. That's a little overrated in my opinion. I wasn't Elvis, and people jump to Johnny Cash right away, and I suppose so. I liked his voice, a deep voice, and stuff like that, and very simple music. I really like his simple stuff. So there was influence there for sure. If he would be considered rockabilly, I don't know, but so I don't know who I'd say there because with our style of rockabilly, we don't get about as crazy as Jerry Lee Lewis was, and people like them were still a little tamer. So, but
Well, there's people like Sleepy LaBeef and Lonnie Mack. There was all these, Sleepy used to travel on the Louisiana Hayride with Elvis and stuff. So,
yeah, yeah.
and even George Jones was kind of doing rockabilly in the early days. So,
Yeah, I have to say that, like, I've been listening to a lot of George's earlier stuff there, and now that I take influence from that now, but at the time we started, I hadn't gotten that deep into with George Jones, and been listening to his early stuff, and that stuff is pretty good. I like a lot of that.
I mean, the way you guys dress, you could be members of the Stray Cats with Brian Setzer too.
Right? Yeah, yeah.
Well, I think you're gonna find your career just going more and more. What's the recording process like in your record company relationships? Has that all been good for you?
Well, it's been good. Like I say, I like to think things through and make sure we're doing the right thing. My intention is to always own every ounce of my voice and my recordings, and always own my masters. So, you know, I like to say that there's never going to be a time I'll ever sign a record deal where a record company puts out a record for me that where they own. I'm not going to do that. Maybe something along the lines of a licensing agreement or something, but where we can work together evenly. But I've heard so many of those stories, I'm honestly surprised that it's still legal for record companies to do the things that they do to artists, And like even hearing, and I'm bluegrass at heart. I don't listen to a lot of music like Taylor Swift, but I know who she is, and I heard about her. Was it her that had to re-record her whole everything to get to own her masters because, her record label owned it all. And
Yeah.
so I can't believe that they can still get away with that stuff, but I just know that I'm never going to do that. So every record we've put out so far has been independent. We'll look in the future to maybe working with a label, but I don't think I'll ever sign my life away with anybody. And I'm really passionate about the process. Like this new record we were talking about, that I went in and recorded through a 1950s, well, through a 1940s RCA microphone hanging from one of those chrome poles, and just one, my voice and the guitar. And that fed through a 1950s preamp, I guess they called it, and straight into this old 1950s tape machine equipment onto analog tape. And so we recorded direct through that RCA microphone onto tape and didn't touch it. Didn't put any reverb, nothing on it, no effects, just the room, the way they did it. And that's why I think that record sounds amazing, and I think that's why. It's not overproduced, there's no editing done, and the mistakes are left in. It was one take, no overdubs. And when we record an album with the group too, the last one we recorded it in my parlor, and I've got an old house with a big cistern in the basement that used to hold water.
One more dollar to go was recorded in your parlor.
That one was recorded in the parlor, yeah, and
Yeah.
we've got
Wow.
another one that we've recorded that probably won't be coming out till next year because we've got a strategy we're working on with it. We don't like to rush things too much, and but it was recorded in there too, onto all live off the floor, no overdubs, all the boys in one room at the same time. And if somebody messed up bad enough, we'd have to do the whole thing again. But I kind of like keeping it's very human, it's very relatable. Like when I listen to those old George Jones recordings and Fair and Young recordings, you can hear the little hiccups and stuff, and it makes it way more enjoyable to listen to. There's more life and character to it, and so that's how we record onto Omni mics and in the room all together. And what we did was with that cistern in my basement, we ran a microphone and speaker down there and used that as an echo chamber. So the reverb wasn't even from a computer. It was all real. All the sounds were real. And it came through we recorded it. It went through the cistern, echoed off the wall, back in, and then into the tape machine onto tape. And so that's what I said. We had to do it that way because I didn't want somebody to use fake computer effects to put reverb on. If however they did it in the 40s and 50s, that's how we were going to do it because those are the recordings I like. So I'm trying my best to recreate the character that those recordings had. And I think we really achieved it with this next album that's coming out sometime next year. I'm really looking forward to that. But that is the recording process, is analog tape and live off the floor.
Yeah. I always like to ask musicians that tour a lot. Tell us about some bands that you've run across that really caught your fancy that you thought were great that we might not know about, but we should know about.
Uh, well, have you heard of the Honky Tonk Wranglers?
No, no.
Yeah, they're living in Kentucky. Josh McMillan there, he's the front man for that group. And they're doing really, really good stuff. They dress up in the whole bit, he kind of reminds me of Farron Young. He's got this, a similar look, and they play wonderful, wonderful stuff, steel guitar, and basically just stepped right out of the early '50s and or mid '50s Grand Ole Opry era. And I met them for the first time in Spain, of all places. We went there for Rock and Race Festival, and we had seen each other on because they're doing really, really well on, say, TikTok and social media and stuff. So I had seen a lot of them, and I ran into them, and I was kind of nervous to see him because I thought, well, this is this it's the guy. He's here, and then turns out he seemed to think the same of me a little bit too. So we got along really well when we talked to each other because we had both seen some of each other up until that point, and we've kept in touch ever since. And they do really good. They've got some albums out on Spotify and vinyl record or on whatever streaming service anybody wants to use. And actually, with our live shows, we did the Flat and Scruggs Grand Ole Opry show always starts out with "Shuckin' the Corn," and T. Tommy Catrout is talking over it, saying it's the Flat and
Right.
Scruggs Grand Ole Opry show, brought to you by Martha White Self Rising Flour and Pet Milk. And so Josh McMillan does the voiceover for that. We have an intro track to our shows, and it's "Shuckin' the Corn," and he'll say live and in person, it's the Jake Fodlin Traveling Road Show, brought to you by, I use 1950s Union pomade in my hair, and they sponsor us with the product, and so we talk about that. We also have ads. We do live ads and jingles in the show too. I forgot to mention that.
Mm.
And so I got along well with them, but that's the Honky Tonk Wranglers. Now, some other groups that now going back probably 7, 8 years ago at that festival by my place, the Pole Ramblin' Boys came through.
Oh, sure.
And
Yeah.
and that was before they had really hit it off. And I couldn't believe that banjo player standing up there straight with good posture, wearing his big cowboy hat up at the mic. And that was some of the best bluegrass I had ever heard in my life as of that time. And that they really did inspire me. I never had a chance to talk to them again, but if I ever do, I would like to tell them how much that performance when I was a kid like that really did for me to get started, because that was the best at that time that I had ever seen anybody put on a show, a bluegrass show. And I
Well,
sort of followed along with them a bit.
when you're in Nashville, Jim Lauderdale will probably be at the Americana Awards, the conference. So look up Jim Lauderdale because he plays with the Pole Ramblin' Boys, and
Oh, does
Jim
he?
can he can school you on that whole thing. Jim's one of the MCs at the Grand Ole Opry too. So
Oh, is he? Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
And when
well,
you're in
that's
Nashville, there's another band I wanted to bring up is Hot Rise. I don't know
oh,
if you're familiar with Hot Rise, but Tim O'Brien's going to be there in Nashville. Maybe he can come by and see you when you're playing at the awards too, at the
well,
convention.
that'll be good if I can see some of these people. And I did just also want to mention the Cody Norris show as well, because we keep missing each other. He keeps playing at the same festivals 1 year before me, and then I'll come. So, and there was, like, we went to play at Tuna Fest, and I think it was there in Denmark. No, sorry, I got this mixed up. He was playing at the Rotterdam Bluegrass Festival in the Netherlands, in Rotterdam, and that was a year. And then I come last year and had heard all about this Cody Norris that was there, and thought, shoot, I just following him around trying to catch up and say hello to him sometime. And then we just played a festival, Cowichan Lake, here in British Columbia the other day, and I found out that he was there last year too. And then there was one time we played in Edmonton, Alberta, and his group was there in the city, but he was playing a show at a bluegrass festival, and we were playing a show that night. And so we couldn't, I was going to go, I wanted to go see him, but we were working that night too. So I really enjoy his thing that he's got going on. He puts on a good show, and a lot of banter and stuff. So I really would like to meet him someday and play a couple tunes.
Yeah. Well, I just think that you're one of my favorite new artists.
Uh,
How does it work for you writing? How do you start a song and finish a song?
well, when I have something to write about, because I don't like to just try and sit down and write a song for the heck of it, because then it just doesn't really turn out for me, because there's no passion in it. There's so something has to inspire me, whether that's a good thing or a bad thing, and then it usually comes to me with an idea or a rhyme, or even if I'm just playing on the guitar sometime and I make a mistake, but it sounds amazing, and I do something funny thought, well, that could be used for something. So I come up with a melody first. A lot of people sit down and write a poem and then try and save it till they come up with a melody, but I usually don't start writing until I have a melody. and then I come up with the verse melody and the chorus melody, and then I put words to it that fit in there. And usually, if I have something in mind, I can write a song in 5 to 10 minutes. But the only downfall with my process is sometimes I won't write for half a year or
No.
even you know what I mean? And then all of a sudden I'll write 3 songs in a day. And then by the end of the week, I've got 12 new songs, and then I won't write again for another half a year. But like this album that's coming out next year, the majority of that album was written in a couple weeks, and I haven't written any songs since then. And I know I'll write again at some point, but I just don't force it. I can't force it because then it's no good.
So
So
you don't go back and tinker with them afterwards. You don't go, I could fix this or I could make that better.
I suppose it's happened before, like where I'll not melody wise or anything, but it may be a better, maybe there's a better lyric or a better word that could be, but I could do that at any time. Who knows? Maybe it could always even add something. Say 20 years from now, I have another verse I want to put in for one of the things, then I could do that if I wanted to. And that's my process for it anyway.
Jake Vodlin, it's been great to have spend some time with you and get our listeners to get to know you because I want people to hear your music. I think it's energetic, it's new, it's fresh, and yet it's old and wonderful and classic as well.
Well, I appreciate it. Yeah. And thanks for having me here for a chat. Well, I hope maybe we'll see you in Nashville, maybe at Americana Fest. I don't know if
Or
you'll
what?
be there.
Or maybe we'll get you out. I'm out in the West Coast, so maybe we'll get you out to California on a tour one of these times.
Okay. Yeah.
All
That'll be
right. Well, we
good.
certainly wish you the best and thank you for joining us.
Yes. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.